shifted over the weeks that followed, as Syra became not just a presence in his apartment, but an indelible part of his life. Their evenings together became ritualistic, filled with the soft glow of candlelight as she wove tales from centuries past, showing him empires long gone and rulers with dreams as vast as the desert. Her stories were vivid, tragic, and filled with threads of fate. With each memory she shared, he found himself lost in the allure of a world he'd never known, and in the woman whose life spanned it all. Despite her ancient origins, Syra's spirit was restless, curious, and surprisingly playful. She'd tease him about the clutter in his apartment, rearrange his books into stacks that made no logical sense, and vanish, only to reappear with something pilfered from his collection. Yet, she would also pause at the window, gazing out as if searching for something she'd lost, and each time Eric would feel his chest tighten. One night, as they shared a glass of wine under the city's flickering streetlights, Eric finally worked up the courage to ask, "What happens if, when, you're freed from the vessel? Will you stay, or go back to wherever you're from?" Her gaze dropped to the glass in her hand. "Freedom is complicated for beings like me." She spoke quietly, her voice tinged with a bittersweet edge. "I'm bound to this world, but my essence belongs to another, a realm as distant to you as your memories are to me. I can only linger here as long as my master has need of me." Eric's heart sank. "So when my wishes are up, you leave?" He tried to keep his voice even, but the thought of her absence felt strangely unbearable. She looked up, her honey-colored eyes softening. "It's the way of things, Eric." She reached out, her fingers brushing against his. "But don't think about that now. We still have time." The nights that followed were filled with both a heightened sense of urgency and a tenderness that neither spoke of, but both felt. Syra's magic infused the air with a mysterious warmth that made everything feel surreal, as if the French Quarter itself was holding its breath for them. One evening, while they were listening to soft jazz, Syra noticed the way Eric's eyes lingered on her when he thought she wasn't looking. She tilted her head, amusement flickering across her face. "What is it, Eric?" He opened his mouth, then hesitated. "I think." He took a deep breath, meeting her gaze. "I think I might be using up my wishes faster than I thought." She gave a soft laugh, but it was laced with an emotion he couldn't quite place. "Careful, Eric. You wouldn't want to waste them." "It wouldn't be a waste. It meant I could keep you here." The words came out before he could stop himself, and suddenly the space between them felt charged. For a moment, Syra looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then she leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Be careful with your heart, Eric. Because for me, love is as fleeting as a summer rain, and it comes with no promises." Despite her warning, they found themselves drawing closer in every sense. In the quiet hours of the night, she would speak to him of stars he'd never seen, of love stories lost to time, and of promises never kept. And Eric, unable to resist, found himself wishing for her presence again and again, until he'd unknowingly used his second wish simply by saying, "Stay with me a little longer." Finally, on a quiet evening filled with the lingering scent of incense, Eric knew the time had come. He reached for her hand, his heart aching. "Syra, if I only have one wish left, I know what I'd use it for. I wish for you to stay, not as my genie, but as yourself. Free." Syra's eyes filled with a mixture of shock and wonder. "Eric, no one's ever," she faltered, her hand shaking in his. "Do you understand what that means? I may never belong to this world, not truly." "I don't care," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I'd rather have you here for a little while, as you are, than spend forever missing you." For the first time, he saw her cry. Golden tears fell down her cheeks as she held his gaze. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Thank you for wanting me, not as a wish, but as me." The room filled with a blinding, ethereal light, and as Eric blinked away the glow, he found her standing before him, real and solid and entirely free. They stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, knowing that time would slip away, but for that night, they had all the time in the world. And in the heart of the French Quarter, under the stars and the city lights, two souls from different worlds finally